In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and merciful, I welcome you all in today's session. We were talking about strategies in action. And up till last lecture, we discussed corporate level strategies. And we also talked about that when do we need to use those strategies to achieve our strategic, financial, and operational objectives. In today's session, we'll be talking about organizational or business level strategies. And along with that, we'll be discussing functional strategies in detail, that what could marketing, finance, production, HR, MIS, different departments would be doing, and how departmental objectives can be achieved. So we start with some comparison of organizational goals. In this particular table, we'll be talking about different types of goals and the management levels associated with those goals, time horizon, scope, level of detail, and the related activities performed to accomplish those goals would be discussed. So when we talk about the overall organization, we are concerned with mission and organizational level and corporate level strategy. The management levels involved would be the top management and the senior management. The time horizon for overall as well as organizational setup would be long term, which means 3 years, 5 years and onwards. The scope it is going to cover would be broad and general. The level of detail mentioned in the mission and the overall strategy would be low. And the overall mission, obviously in association with vision, values, and strategy, would be related to the survival, profitability, sustainability, growth rate, and market share concerns. But when we come down to operations level, where functional areas are involved, the things would be segregated into strategic aspects, tactical aspects, and operational aspects. When we talk about operational strategic aspects, there would be involvement of the senior management. The time horizon would be moderate to long. The scope again would be broad. The level of detail mentioned would be relatively low. And strategic operational concerns are, for example, product design, choice of location, choice of technology, and new facilities. From the strategic level, when we trickle down to tactical aspects, the involvement of middle management is seen. The time horizon would be medium term, which is something like 1 to 3 years. The scope would be moderate. The level of detail would become moderate. And then we'll be more concerned with the employment levels, output levels, which means production, or for that matter, productivity, equipment selection, facility layout. These are the concerns which are related to the tactical operational concerns, the tactical operational matters. We have to see that how much customization and standardization we have to bring in. What would be the facility layout, how you're going to design the facility. And when we talk about purely operational concerns, that is the concern related with the lower level of management. The time horizon is short because perhaps you have to plan for daily routine as well. But the short over here means up to 1 year, up to 1 financial year. The scope would be very specific, very narrow, and very focused. The level of details required are very high. And the concerns would be like scheduling personnel on daily basis, adjusting output rates, inventory management, and purchasing. So we can see that starting from the survival, profitability, growth rate, and market share, and coming down to scheduling, personnel, adjusting output rates, inventory management, and purchasing, you are setting certain goals, targets, and objectives. And remember that all those targets and objectives should always be SMART. That is the reason that we said that the KPIs, the KRAs, the KPAs, the key result areas, key performance areas, key performance indicators, objectives, these all should be defined in a SMART fashion. And if you don't make them measurable, if you don't quantify them, it would be very hard for you to identify that either you have achieved them or not. So it would not be possible for you to evaluate your objectives and targets unless and until you don't translate them into quantity. Now, once the quantitative objectives at organizational level are set, and operational, strategic, tactical, and operational concerns are finalized, the targets are defined. So now we are moving towards the discussion of strategy, because I told you earlier that objective setting is talking about what you have to achieve. And when you say how you have to achieve, you are supposed to craft a strategy. So a strategy would be a plan for achieving organizational goals, which serves as a roadmap for reaching the organizational destinations. And the destination we have just talked about, those destinations can be strategic, tactical, operational in nature. So organizations have organizational strategies, which means overall strategies that relate to the entire organization. Now we are focusing upon one standalone organization. We are not talking about the corporate level strategies. So the overall strategies that relate to the entire organization, one SBU, one strategic business unit, that would be known as organizational strategies. And in the next slides, we'll be talking about how many types of organizational strategies are there. And organizational strategies support the achievement of organizational goals and mission, which are obviously derived from the corporate level goals and mission. Now, once the organizational strategies, targets, goals, objectives are defined, the next step would be functional level strategies. And when we talk about functional level strategies, strategies that relate to each of the functional areas and that support achievement of the organizational strategy. So by accomplishing your functional level goals and targets and objectives, and then combining them together, you'll be actually achieving the organizational level strategies. The next term you need to understand is what do we mean by tactics? So the tactics are the methods and actions taken to accomplish strategies. So remember that when we use the word strategy, we mean to talk about long term or at least up to a year. And when we use the word tactics, it might be daily tactics, it might be weekly tactics, it might be monthly tactics, it might be quarterly tactics. So the scope of the tactics is short term. And basically in tactics, we talk about how to part of the process, that how to execute your daily routine, how to make a product, how to conduct your operations. So tactics are again the subset of strategy. And when we use the word operations, that is actually the doing part of the process. The tactics would be how to, and operations would be the execution. Now, in this flow chart, you can see how different operations are actually associated. This is information flow to and from operations. Now, this particular expression operations is talking about the overall working of an organization, the execution of different activities. And in that execution, there is an association, a close tie between all the functional areas. And those functional areas can be marketing, information system, finance, human resource, engineering and accounting, and the rest of the departments as well. And now we are going to have an overview that how these functional areas are contributing in the operations management of an organization. In this particular flow sheet diagram, the arrow coming from a functional area is talking about the contribution of the department to the overall organizational operations. And the arrow going towards the functional area is the requirement of the functional area or department from the overall organization to execute its own operations. So let's start from the marketing. The marketing requires, first of all, the current operating capabilities from the overall organization. The marketing would be requiring the current inventory levels. And whenever we talk about inventory levels, we'll be concerned with not just finished good inventory, but work in progress and raw material inventory can also be taken into account so that organization can have an estimation that how much their working capacity is. Then the marketing would be requiring from the overall operations the data related to output rates, and obviously they would also be requiring the overall capacities, the capabilities of operations from the overall organizational facility. Now this is the initial data required by the marketing department, and after working upon this data and collecting the marketing information, the marketing department would be providing the data related to customer demands, customer feedback, customer demand, obviously about the future products and the current products, customer feedback about obviously the products which are already being used. And the marketing would also be providing the information related to the need for the new products. Now, once the customer records are there, and once the need for new products is developed, the operations department, the operations of the organization overall, would divert the information to the engineering, and the engineering would be requiring from the overall organizational facility the operations capabilities and the design requirements as per the new product design, and would be providing technological trade-offs and the product specifications. Once the engineering department has developed the technological trade-offs and the product specifications, those specifications might also include certain capability enhancements, and to materialize the products, the engineering would also be requiring the contribution of the human resource. Now from there, the labor requirements would be posted to human resource department, and the human resource department would be providing the labor costs and the labor skills available to make those products according to the marketing new product requirements. Now, once the labor costs and labor skills availability are being discussed, the finance department would be activated, and the finance department would be requiring capital requirements and capital investments planned, and would be providing financial measures, budgets, and stockholders' requirements. Once the finance department has made their decisions about different investments, all the records would be kept by the accounts department, and the accounts department would be requiring billing information, process improvement, and would be providing current performance measures in terms of accounting statements. And once the current performance measures are there and new product specifications are there, the product design and specifications are developed, the labor skills available are materialized, the finances are arranged, and the information system department is interacting and integrating all the information together through building up technological capabilities once we provide them information needs. So from there, the overall operations and the execution of physical products, distribution and sales would be done. No doubt, in the whole process, there would be many more activities involved as well. But in this flowsheet diagram, I have just tried to create a picture in your mind, a prototype picture in your mind, a blueprint in your mind, that how do we design the organizations and how do we interrelate different functional areas with one another. Now, along with this flowsheet diagram, where there is information flow to and from operations, we also need to come up with strategy map. And in the strategy map, I told you in the last lecture that we correlate every nitty-gritty details of every functional area together to achieve the overall organizational targets and objectives. Now, once the operational design is there, which you might have discussed in detail in the course of operations management, because obviously when all the data comes to the operations department, you need to talk about the lead time, the throughput time, the scheduling, the making of the things, the quality control, quality enhancement. There would be so many issues involved. So once the operational design is materialized, we also need to see different tactics through which the organization is going to ensure their survival and their profitability in the industry. So up till now, in the current discussion, we have talked about targets, objectives, and goals. And then we have seen overall operational design. And now we are moving towards the tactics which organizations would use to make sure that their position in the industry remains progressing. So let's talk about some offensive competitive location tactics. The first tactic we have is known as frontal assault. Again, this word frontal assault is derived from Sun Tzu's The Art of War. But in the business orientation, when we talk about frontal assault, it matches the target's marketing mix in detail, product for product, and so on. And by the word target, we mean to say the competitors in the industry making the similar products. So in frontal assault, in this tactic, you're going to match your P2P scenario, product to product, price to price, place to place, promotion to promotion. If one company is launching a particular product at a particular price, at a particular location, with a particular promotion, the other company is also going to follow the same path. So if that tactic is used, that is known as frontal assault. The second tactic we have, which is again the location tactic, is flanking maneuver. Again, this word is derived from the war field, but yet in business environment, the situation is nevertheless the same. So flanking maneuver is mounted upon a market segment, geographic region, or area of technology that the target has neglected. So supposedly, if the target, which is a competitor, has ignored a particular segment in the market, like when they were designing their STP, segmentation, targeting, and positioning, they have ignored a particular segment and they have not targeted that, and you target that particular segment to catch that segment of the market with your products and services. So that would be flanking maneuver. Or you can go to a particular geographic area in which the product and services of the competitor are not yet available, or you advance into a particular technology which the target has not yet thought of. So that would be known as flanking maneuver. The next one is encirclement, which means it consists of a large number of simultaneous flank attacks as possible in order to overwhelm the target, which means that you not just target a particular segment, not just move to a particular geographic area, or not just focus on a particular technology, rather you go for all the flanks. At the same time, you are entertaining a different segment. At the same time, you are targeting a different location, and at the same time, you are advancing in a particular technology. So if that thing is happening, that strategic option would be known as encirclement. And another very important and very famous location tactic is guerrilla warfare. And in guerrilla warfare, we say that it consists of a series of aggressive, short-term moves to demoralize, unbalance, and destabilize the opponent. The tactics include drastic price cuts, poaching staff, political lobbying, and short bursts of promotional activities. Now, as you can see, these offensive competitive location tactics, many companies can echo in your mind. Many companies are just doing the same things. For example, Coke and Pepsi. For example, Toyota and Honda. For example, McDonald's and KFC. So there can be so many companies, Procter & Gamble, Unilever. There would be so many companies working in your own environment, which might be sometimes using frontal assault, other times they might be using flanking maneuver. Then they can come up with encirclement, and obviously guerrilla warfare would always be there. So different activities at different points in time can switch their location tactics so that their competitors would become destabilized, and so that they can ensure their survival in the market. At the same time, there are not just offensive competitive location tactics, there are defensive competitive location tactics as well. And when we talk about defensive competitive location tactics, the first one is that you have to go for raising the structural barriers. Now, I can understand that I have written a large paragraph to elaborate this structural barrier details, but the points are important. Therefore, you have to read with me the whole paragraph. That when we talk about raise structural barriers, it means block the challenger's logical avenues of attack by offering a full line of products in every profitable market segment. Okay, read with me once again. Block the challenger's logical avenues of attack, and challengers means opponents, competitors. So block the challenger's logical avenues of attack by offering a full line of products in every profitable market to close off any entry point. Block channel access, which means distribution channels. Block channel access by signing exclusive agreements, which are win-win collaborations with distributors. Raise buyer switching costs by offering low cost training to users. Raise the cost of gaining trial by keeping prices low on items most likely to be purchased by the new users. increase economies of scale to reduce unit costs, foreclose alternatives technologies through patenting or licensing, limit outside access to facilities and personnel, tie up suppliers by obtaining exclusive contracts or purchasing key locations, avoid suppliers that also serve competitors, and encourage the government to raise barriers such as safety and pollution standards or favorable trade policies. Now, in just one expression, I have quoted a couple of ways with which you can raise the structural barriers and which would cause the higher levels of entry barriers as well in the industry, which would reduce the threat of new entrant, and as well as it would put a challenge to the weak competitors in the industry. The second defensive comparative location tactic can be bypass attack. And by bypass attack, we mean to say is indirect and unaggressive. It focuses on unrelated products, new geographic areas, and technical leapfrogging to advance in the market. Now we have another expression, which is technical leapfrogging. And by technical leapfrogging, we mean to say that in this bypass attack, you take advantage of the leader's research and development about a particular product, and by reverse engineering, you come to know that how the product is made, and you copy that product, you imitate that product, and then without having your own R&D, you launch that product into the market and you drive the benefit. So that is what you call technical leapfrogging, that on the behalf of somebody else, you gain the advantage. So in this bypass attack, read once again with me, is indirect and unaggressive as it is defensive comparative location tactic. It focuses on unrelated products, new geographic areas, and technical leapfrogging to advance in the market. The next one is increased expected retaliation in sequence of defensive comparative location tactics. And in this increased expected retaliation, there is an increase in the perceived threat of retaliation from the existing competitors, existing firms, the major players. And they create an environment in which the opponent, the smaller firms, or the new entrants might not feel comfortable to operate. And there can be so many ways they can use to increase the perception of retaliation. It can be lobbying, it can be political maneuvers, it can be leg pulling, backbiting. I'm talking about industrial concerns. So there can be so many tactics with which you can create an environment of uncertainty. And there can even be another way that you have to lower the inducement for attack, which means that reduce a challenger's expectations of future profits in the industry. That sometimes companies suddenly drop their prices so low that smaller firms or the new entrants just cannot cope with that price drop. So sometimes even companies can compromise on their own profits to hit the competition. Now you can again recall so many companies in your mind, the telecom sector in your mind, where many companies would be doing such things. It is not that one company follows one tactic all the time. That basically the scenario would be that many a times they would be changing the tactics. Sometimes they will be moving from offensive to defensive or from defensive to offensive. Sometimes they'll be going for guerrilla warfare. Sometimes they can be going for frontal assault. Sometimes they would be going for bypass attack, and even they can go for lower the inducement for attack by increasing the expectations of reduction in the future profits in the industry, which can also be abbreviated as PIE, potential industry earnings. So these are few of the tactics which companies would adopt to achieve their short-term annual objectives. Now coming back to the organizational strategy again, let's see how many types of organizational strategy are there. First of all, we can have low price. That's an organizational strategy or business level strategy. One SPU would be following that, and perhaps at the same time, the other SPUs under the corporate umbrella might be operating with some other strategy. So low price can be the strategic option with an organization, in which they can go for outsource operations to countries with low labor cost. For example, many home appliances companies in Pakistan, they have gone for outsourcing in China. So that can be a strategy. Use capital intensive methods to achieve high output volume and low unit cost. So by adopting new technologies, by increasing the efficiency rates, by increasing the productivity rates, they have achieved the cost advantage. And by that cost advantage, they can offer the lower prices to the market and yet still be earning good profits. Then there can be specialization, which means focus on narrow product lines or limited services to achieve higher quality. So that is another tactic which many companies, many restaurants, many organizations, they follow. Then there can be responsiveness, which means time-based strategies. And the time-based strategies would mean strategies that focus on the reduction of time needed to accomplish tasks. They can have the first mover advantages. They can be fast in their operations. They can be quick in their deliveries. Then their differentiation can be based upon variety, which means they focus on customization. Their differentiation can focus on newness, which means focus on innovation to create new products or services. They can have their differentiation in terms of services, which means focus on various aspects of services. For example, they're more helpful, they're more reliable, they are more respondent. For example, there is a very famous organization I usually talk about, that is Land's End. It's a garments company in America. And the Land's End is offering their call center services 24/7, 365. And they have got something like 1,000 call center operators working 24/7, 365 around the globe. And they have a claim that if you need to know the recipe of a pizza, you can call at Land's End. If you want to book a taxi, you can call at Land's End. If you want to decide which school your child should go, you can call at Land's End. Now, mind you, Land's End is a garments company, and they're offering everything you can think of. Even so much so, they say that if you are getting bored at home, just call at Land's End and you will find as if you have found your lost friend. Okay. And from the recipe of a pizza and from the school decision of your kid, how they would bring you to the garment, that is the technique they have. And they offer exceptional services to the clients and customers. And they have sometimes even offered lifetime return policies of their garments. So remember that many companies put a lot of effort in finding out the ways in which they can satisfy their customers. Okay. And another very important and international example is that there is a very good restaurant, very good hotel chain, Ritz-Carlton. And Ritz-Carlton have developed a very unique service orientation. For example, if you have stayed in Ritz-Carlton in, suppose, Middle East, and then next time you go to Ritz-Carlton in Germany and you go to the front desk, in Germany, they would welcome you by your first name, even you have not introduced yourself. And when you'll be going in your room, when you have checked in into your room, and the person putting up your luggage would be asking you for another, would you need another pillow? Because in Middle East, when you stayed there in Ritz-Carlton, you wanted another pillow. So what do they do? They have a very strong CRM, customer relationship management program. And in that CRM, they keep every record of every customer and they distribute the whole records to every branch and every hotel around the globe. So companies, they do have very high level of service aspects and service orientations. Then there is quality related issues that focus on quality in all phases of an organization in order to achieve higher quality than competitors. over here, our first session is ending. See you in next session. Hurry up.